Zara stood frozen outside her husband's office door, the positive pregnancy test still warm in her trembling hand. Through the half-open door, she heard Fred's laughter, the same laugh that once made her heart flutter, now tearing it apart. 3 more days, Diana, and we're gone, Fred said. Dubai. New life. New everything. Diana, her best friend since university, giggled. I can't believe she has no idea. Poor Zara. Probably at home planning baby names. Zara's hand moved instinctively to her stomach as the world tilted beneath her feet. What if she's actually pregnant this time? Diana asked, her voice dripping with mock concern. Fred laughed coldly. She's not. We've been trying for 2 years. Clearly something's wrong with her. But even if she were, we'd be gone before she could tell me. Let her raise it alone. I never wanted children anyway. The laughter that followed was cruel, callous, inhuman. The life growing inside Zara suddenly felt like the only real thing left in a world built on lies. Before we continue, let me ask you something quietly. Where are you listening from right now? And what time is it in your part of the world? Some of us are hearing this story under the hot afternoon sun. Some in the calm of the night, when thoughts are heavy and hearts are open. Different places, one story, one lesson. If stories like this speak to your heart, please subscribe to the channel. Your like helps this story reach another soul. Your comment tells me you understand the lesson. And when you share, you may be saving someone from the same mistake. Now let us continue. The morning had started with pure joy. Zara had woken up at dawn, unable to sleep from excitement, and driven herself to Lagoon Hospital in Victoria Island. Dr. Adeyemi had smiled warmly as she delivered the news that Zara had been praying for. Congratulations, Mrs. Okonkwo. You're 6 weeks pregnant. 6 weeks. After 2 years of trying, of monthly disappointments, of Fred's increasingly distant reassurances that it'll happen when it happens, finally their prayers had been answered. Zara had clutched the test results to her chest, tears streaming down her face as she thanked God in the hospital parking lot. She'd immediately begun planning the surprise. She would go to Fred's office. He'd been working late so much recently, probably stressed about expanding his logistics business. She'd bring his favorite jollof rice from Mama Put's kitchen down the street, walk into his office, and place the pregnancy test on his desk. She'd imagined his face lighting up, imagined him lifting her off her feet, spinning her around, calling his mother immediately to share the news. The downtown Lagos traffic had tested her patience, but nothing could dampen her joy. She'd hummed worship songs the entire drive, her hand occasionally drifting to her still flat belly. Your daddy is going to be so happy, she'd whispered. The office building was familiar. She'd visited many times before. The security guard, Emmanuel, had greeted her with his usual friendly wave. Madam Zara. Oga is upstairs. You want me to call him? No, Emmanuel. I want to surprise him, she'd said, grinning. She'd taken the elevator to the 3rd floor, walked down the corridor with the food container in one hand, and her handbag with the pregnancy test in the other. Her heels had clicked against the tiles, her heart racing with anticipation. Then she'd heard the voices. Fred's office door was slightly ajar. Unusual for him, he always kept it closed during meetings. But these weren't business voices. These were intimate, conspiratorial whispers punctuated by laughter. The account transfers are almost complete, Fred was saying. I've been moving money in small amounts for 6 months. She never checks the statements, too trusting, too naive. That's what made this so easy, Diana replied, her voice dripping with satisfaction. Honestly, Fred, I don't know how you tolerated her this long. So boring. So desperate for a baby. Like that's all a woman should think about. Zara's breath caught in her throat. She pressed herself against the wall, her body trembling. I married her for the connections, Fred said, his voice casual, emotionless. Her family's logistics network in the East made it easy to expand. Her father trusted me completely. Signed off on everything. Now that I've built my own network, I don't need them anymore. I don't need her. And if she's pregnant? Diana asked. She's not. She can't be. We've been trying for 2 years. Clearly something's wrong with her. But even if she were, we'd be gone before she could tell me. Let her raise it alone. I never wanted children anyway. The laughter that followed was cruel, callous, inhuman. Zara felt the food container slip from her hand, but she caught it at the last second. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The hallway seemed to spin. The baby, their baby, suddenly felt like a weight pressing down on her chest. She backed away slowly, carefully, her mind screaming even as her body moved mechanically. She reached the elevator, pressed the button and waited. Emmanuel's voice calling out to her seemed to come from underwater. "Madam, enter? You forget something." She forced a smile, forced words out. "Wrong day. I'll come back tomorrow." In her car, Zara sat in silence for 20 minutes, staring at nothing. Then she looked down at her handbag at the pregnancy test inside. She placed one hand on her stomach. "They think they've won," she whispered to the child Fred didn't know existed. "They have no idea what's coming." Zara drove home on autopilot, her mind racing through everything she'd heard. 6 months of planning. Money transfers. Dubai. Diana, who'd been her maid of honor, who'd held her hand through every negative pregnancy test, who'd promised to be there for her always, had been plotting her destruction. By the time she pulled into their compound in Lekki Phase 1, Zara had made a decision. She would not cry. She would not confront. She would be strategic. She walked into the kitchen, unpacked the jollof rice, and began preparing dinner. When Fred came home 3 hours later, she greeted him with a smile. "Welcome home, darling," she said, kissing his cheek. "How was your day?" Fred looked momentarily surprised. She'd been distant lately, he'd noticed. But he smiled back. "Long, stressful. But better now that I'm home." Liar, Zara thought. But she said, "I made your favorite. Go freshen up." Over dinner they talked about meaningless things. Fred mentioned a business trip coming up Dubai for a conference. Zara nodded, asked questions, acted interested. Inside she was dying. But outside she was perfect. That night, lying beside him in bed, she felt physically ill. This man, who she'd given 3 years of her life to, who she'd trusted completely, was a stranger. Worse than a stranger, a predator. The next morning, after Fred left for work, Zara began her investigation. She opened his laptop. He'd never bothered to change the password from her birthday, too arrogant to imagine she'd ever check. What she found confirmed everything. Email threads with Diana going back 7 months. Bank transfer records showing 47 million Nigerian nairas moved from their joint account to an offshore account. Loan documents with her family's business used as collateral. Her signature forged. Flight tickets to Dubai for 2, departing in 2 days. Hotel reservations. Even apartment listings in Marina. Zara photographed everything. Then she called her older brother, James. James arrived within the hour, his face darkening as she showed him the evidence. "I'll kill him," he said simply. "No," Zara said, her voice steady. "I need you to trust me. I have a plan. But I need your help." She explained everything. James listened, his lawyer's mind already working. "You're sure about this?" he asked. "Absolutely." "Then let's destroy them properly." Over the next day and a half Zara made preparations. She called their favorite restaurant, the Lagoon View, and booked their entire private section for a special anniversary celebration for the following evening. She personally called both families, Fred's parents in Enugu, her parents in Aba, Fred's 3 siblings, her 2 brothers and sister. She called their pastor, their church council members, close family friends. She called Diana's parents and her younger sister. "Please, it's very important to me that you're there," she told each one. "I have wonderful news to share with the family." Fred came home that evening looking nervous. "Zara, Diana mentioned you're planning some kind of dinner tomorrow?" "Yes. Our anniversary is next week, but I wanted to celebrate early. Just family and close friends. You don't mind, do you?" He couldn't refuse without raising suspicion. "Of course not. That's thoughtful." Diana called later, her voice sugary sweet. "Zara, darling. Thank you so much for including me in your celebration. You're such a wonderful friend." Zara smiled into the phone. "You deserve everything that's coming to you, Diana. Everything." That night Zara barely slept. She felt the baby. A slight flutter, probably just her imagination, but she held on to it. Tomorrow everyone would know the truth. Tomorrow Fred and Diana would face the consequences they'd spent 6 months trying to escape. She lay in bed beside Fred, listening to him breathe, and whispered into the darkness. You thought you married someone weak. Tomorrow you'll learn how wrong you were. The Lagoon View restaurant glowed with soft lighting and elegant decorations. Zara had arrived early, dressed in a stunning gold Ankara dress that her mother had helped her choose. 30 people filled the private section. Both families, church members, friends, all chatting happily, wondering what the special announcement would be. Fred arrived looking uncomfortable in his suit, his eyes darting around nervously. Diana came minutes later, wearing a tight red dress, her smile plastered on but not reaching her eyes. When their gazes met, Zara saw the flash of panic. They knew something was wrong, but they couldn't leave without causing a scene. Dinner was served. Conversation flowed. Zara played her role perfectly, laughing at jokes, thanking everyone for coming, her hand occasionally resting on her stomach in a gesture only she understood. Then, as dessert was being cleared, Zara stood up. The room quieted. Thank you all for being here tonight, she began, her voice clear and strong. I asked you to come because I have important news to share with the people I love most. She paused, looking directly at Fred. I'm pregnant. 6 weeks along. The room erupted in joy. Fred's mother screamed and rushed to embrace her. Her father stood up, tears in his eyes. Pastor Emmanuel raised his hands in praise. Fred's smile looked like it had been carved into his face with a knife. Thank you, Zara said, raising her hands for quiet. But that's not the only reason I gathered you all here tonight. The mood shifted. Something in her tone made everyone sit back down. Zara walked to the front of the room where a projector screen had been set up. I also wanted you all to witness the truth before 2 people I trusted tried to disappear forever. She clicked her laptop. Bank statements filled the screen. Highlighted transfers. 47 million Nigerian nairas. Fred's face went white. For 6 months, Zara continued, her voice steady despite her racing heart. My husband and my best friend have been planning to steal everything I have and flee to Dubai. They've transferred money, forged my signature on loan documents using my family's business as collateral, and booked flights leaving tomorrow morning. The silence was deafening. Then chaos. She clicked again. WhatsApp messages appeared, blown up for everyone to read. Diana. I can't wait to be free of this boring life. Zara suspects nothing. Fred. She's too stupid to check the accounts. Too desperate for a baby to notice I've been checked out for months. Diana. What if she gets pregnant before we leave? Fred. Won't happen. And if it does, we'll be gone. Let her raise the mistake alone. Zara's voice cracked for the first time. That mistake they're talking about is the baby I'm carrying right now. The baby your son doesn't even know exists because I overheard them planning this betrayal 2 days ago. Fred's mother stood up, walked across the room, and slapped her son so hard the sound echoed. You are not my son, she said. Diana tried to stand, tried to leave. James blocked her path, his 6'4" frame unmovable. Sit down, he commanded. Diana's father was weeping openly. Diana, how could you? Fred found his voice. Zara, this isn't. You're misunderstanding. Am I misunderstanding the Dubai flight tickets? Zara interrupted, projecting them on screen. Am I misunderstanding the apartment you've already put a deposit on? The forged loan documents. She placed a folder on the table in front of him. Divorce papers. Already filed. And a lawsuit for fraud, theft, and forgery. My brother has everything documented. Pastor Emmanuel stood up, his face grave. Fred, Diana, this behavior is not just betrayal. It's criminal. You're both asked to leave our church fellowship pending repentance and restitution. Zara looked at both of them one final time. Fred was crying now, his carefully built facade crumbling. Diana sat frozen, mascara running down her face. I wanted all of you to see who they really are before they disappeared with everything. My money, my trust, my future, my dignity, Zara said. Now you all know the truth. She picked up her handbag, her mother and sister immediately flanking her. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I've already paid the bill. As she walked toward the exit, Fred's voice cracked behind her. Zara, please. I'm sorry. Please. She didn't turn around. Her hand rested protectively on her belly as she walked out into the Lagos night. Her family surrounding her, leaving Fred and Diana to face the consequences they'd spent 6 months trying to outrun. The next morning, James began the systematic destruction of Fred's carefully constructed lies. As a financial lawyer with connections throughout Lagos's business community, he filed formal complaints with the bank, provided evidence of the forged documents, and leveraged family connections to freeze the offshore account before Fred could access it. Fred's family, devastated and humiliated, forced him to return every naira. His father, a retired civil servant who'd built his reputation on integrity, personally oversaw the liquidation of Fred's assets. His car, his shares in the logistics company, even his expensive watches and electronics. Everything went toward repaying the debt and the forged loans. Diana faced her own reckoning. Her engagement to another man, a banker from a prominent Yoruba family, arranged before her affair with Fred began, was immediately cancelled when the story spread through their social circles. Her parents, devout church members who'd raised her with strong moral values, couldn't look at her without weeping. Her father stopped speaking to her entirely. Her mother asked her to move out. The church community's response was swift and unforgiving. Pastor Emmanuel made a public announcement during Sunday service, not naming names but making it clear that 2 former members had been removed for gross moral failure and criminal behavior. Everyone knew who he meant. The prayer warriors who'd once interceded for Zara's pregnancy now whispered about Diana's wickedness. The men's fellowship that Fred had belonged to removed his name from their roster. Fred lost his job within a week. Zara's family had invested in the company he worked for, and when her father made a quiet call to the CEO explaining the situation, Fred was dismissed for conduct unbecoming. Other companies, warned through the tight-knit business network, refused to interview him. His professional reputation, built over 8 years, evaporated in days. 3 weeks after the dinner, Fred appeared at Zara's family compound. Her father met him at the gate. "Sir, please," Fred begged, falling to his knees. "I need to speak to Zara. I need to apologize. You need nothing from this family," her father said, his voice like iron. "You betrayed my daughter while she carried your child. You stole from us. You forged documents with our business name. You are dead to us. If I see you here again, I will have you arrested for trespassing." The gate closed in Fred's face. Diana's breakdown came on a Tuesday afternoon. Her younger sister found her unconscious in her apartment, an empty bottle of sleeping pills on the nightstand. The hospital pumped her stomach, saved her life, but the shame only deepened. The suicide attempt became another story whispered in beauty salons and church parking lots. For weeks after her rescue, Diana was discharged. Zara, 7 months pregnant now, came to see her. Diana looked up from her hospital bed, her eyes hollow. "You came to gloat?" "I came because despite everything, I needed to see you one more time," Zara said quietly. She sat down, her pregnant belly prominent. "Why, Diana? We were sisters." Diana's face crumpled. "Because you had everything I wanted. A husband who provided for you. A family that respected you. You were beautiful without trying. And everyone loved you just for being you. I had to work so hard for every bit of attention. And you just existed and people adored you. So you decided to destroy me? I thought if I took what was yours, I'd finally feel like I was enough." Diana's voice broke. "I was so wrong. I'm so sorry, Zara. I know it doesn't change anything, but I'm sorry." Zara stood up slowly. "I forgave you the moment I walked away from that restaurant, Diana. Not for you, for me. Because carrying hate would have poisoned my baby. But forgiveness doesn't erase consequences. You'll live with what you've done forever. And so will Fred." She walked to the door, then turned back. "I hope you find peace someday. But you'll find it far away from me." Meanwhile, Fred had moved back to his mother's 1-bedroom apartment in Surulere, sleeping on a mat in the living room. He'd found work as a dispatch rider for a logistics company. Bitter irony, delivering packages for the industry he'd once been climbing. His mother barely spoke to him. His siblings avoided his calls. At night, lying on that mat, Fred scrolled through Zara's social media. She'd unblocked him after the divorce was finalized. Not cruelty, just indifference. He saw her pregnancy photos, surrounded by her family, glowing and strong. He saw the baby shower, the joy, the love. He'd destroyed everything for a fantasy that evaporated the moment the truth came out. Diana wouldn't return his calls. The Dubai dream was dead. And the wife who'd loved him unconditionally was gone forever. 8 months after that devastating dinner, Zara gave birth to a healthy baby girl at 3:47 a.m. on a quiet Tuesday morning. She named her Hope. The delivery room filled with family, her mother holding one hand, her sister holding the other, James pacing nervously outside until the nurses let him in to meet his niece. Her father wept openly when he held Hope for the first time, kissing her tiny forehead and whispering blessings over her. Fred learned about the birth through Instagram. A cousin he'd forgotten he followed had posted a photo. "Congratulations to my sister Zara on the arrival of baby Hope. God is faithful." He stared at the photo for hours. Hope had his nose, his mother's eyes. She was beautiful. She was his daughter. And he'd thrown away the right to be her father. He sent Zara a message. "Please, let me see her. Let me be part of her life. I know I don't deserve it, but please. She's my daughter too." Zara didn't respond for 3 days. When she did, her message was brief. "You can see her once a month. Supervised visits only. My brother will be present. You'll pay child support as determined by the court. But understand this, Fred, you'll never be her father. You lost that right. My family will raise her with me. She'll know who you are, but she'll never call you daddy." The first visit was arranged for a Saturday afternoon at Zara's parents' house. Fred arrived 30 minutes early, clutching a pink teddy bear he'd spent half his salary on. James met him at the door, his face impassive. "1 hour. You sit where I tell you to sit. You don't raise your voice. You don't upset Zara. Understood?" "Yes. Thank you." Hope was 2 months old, sleeping in a bassinet in the living room. Zara sat nearby, her mother beside her. Fred's own mother had asked to come, and Zara had allowed it. The grandmother had done nothing wrong. When Fred saw Hope for the first time, he broke down completely. He knelt beside the bassinet, tears streaming down his face, his hand trembling as he touched her tiny fingers. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." Zara watched him cry and felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not pain, not even pity. Just emptiness where love used to be. "You can hold her," she said quietly. Fred lifted Hope carefully, cradling her against his chest. She stirred, yawned, settled back to sleep. His mother sat beside him, touching her granddaughter's face, tears falling silently. When the hour ended, Fred didn't want to leave. But James stood up, and Fred knew his time was done. "Thank you," he said to Zara. "For this. For letting me see her." Zara nodded. "The next visit is in 4 weeks. Don't be late." He wasn't. For the next 2 years, Fred came every month, always on time, always bringing something small for Hope. He watched her learn to sit up, to crawl, to walk, to say her first words. He was there, but he wasn't her father. That role belonged to her grandfather, to her Uncle James, to the family that had stood by Zara when Fred had abandoned her. Diana's story took a different path. She'd moved to Abuja, found quiet work as a bookkeeper for a small firm, lived alone in a 1-bedroom apartment. She stayed off social media, avoided old friends, built a life so small and unremarkable that she almost disappeared. 2 years and 3 months after the dinner, Zara was shopping at the Palms Mall in Lekki when she saw Diana across the food court. Diana was thinner, her hair cut short, her clothes plain. She was alone. Their eyes met across the crowded space. Diana's face crumpled, not with hope but with shame. She looked away immediately, gathered her shopping bags, and started walking toward the exit. Zara watched her go. She could have called out, could have confronted her, could have demanded to know if she'd found peace. Instead, she turned back to Hope, who was playing with her grandmother, and let Diana walk out of her life one final time. That evening, after Hope was asleep, Zara sat on her balcony overlooking the Lagos skyline. She'd moved into her own apartment, nothing extravagant but hers, paid for with her work and her family's support. She had a good job now, managing operations for her father's expanding logistics company. She had her daughter. She had her dignity. The scars were still there. Some nights she still woke up from nightmares about that moment outside Fred's office. Some days she wondered if she'd ever trust anyone romantically again. But she was healing. Slowly, deliberately. She thought about Fred on his mat in Surulere, delivering packages for strangers. She thought about Diana in Abuja, living a life so small she'd become invisible. She thought about herself here whole, surrounded by love. "I learned something," she said softly, as if speaking to the city lights. "Silence is more powerful than screaming. Dignity cuts deeper than revenge. And the best response to betrayal isn't destroying them. It's building a life they can never touch again." She went back inside, checked on Hope one more time, and climbed into bed. They'd taken everything they could from her. Her trust, her marriage, her security, her innocence. But they couldn't take her strength. They couldn't take her family. They couldn't take her future. And in the end, that made all the difference. Actions carry consequences that time cannot erase. Fred lost his family, his reputation, his career, and his daughter's love. Reduced to a monthly visitor in a life he should have cherished. Diana lost her community, her family's trust, and her identity. Exiled to a smaller life haunted by shame. But Zara, through strategic strength rather than impulsive revenge, found that the greatest justice isn't destroying those who betray you. It's building a life so full of love and purpose that their absence becomes irrelevant. The innocent suffered, the guilty faced permanent consequences, and the moral truth remained clear. What you sow, you will reap, and some harvests are too bitter to ever fully swallow. Thank you for staying with me to the end. Comment your thoughts on the betrayal, and tell me where you are watching from. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping stories like this. What do you think happens next? Comment below.